Hi, this is Shards, and I thought, as an experiment, I'd do a run through of a replay of one of the recent multiplayer tournament matches for Order of Battle. Basically talk about some of the decisions that people make, and maybe give a demo of how one of these tournament matches played out. So this one we're playing is the one where I played as the Japanese against a good opponent who played as the Americans, and I'm just going to walk you through it. So this is the Wake Island map. The objective for the Japanese is ultimately to take the American headquarters down in the southeast here, but ultimately they want to take any gold and silver objective. So things like Camp 1 here, the supply depot here, the edge captures points here, whereas the Americans are looking to hold on as long as possible to all the gold flags. So these 5, the hotel, the point, the camp, the beach, and the headquarters. The Americans have only so many troops, and they don't get that many reinforcement points. They do have some wildcats who are on the ground who can get into the air if they can protect the hangars. But ultimately, they're going to be playing very much on defence and trying to keep the Japanese off the beaches. The Japanese don't start with that many troops, but get more as the turns go on, and ultimately will outclass and outnumber the Americans. And it all really depends on whether they can get ashore and outflank and push the Americans back. So, the general rules: Japanese get 4 attack waves, in quotes. That's where they get more CP and RP awarded. So the Americans are trying to get the Wildcats in the air. That happens every 2 turns from turn 2 onwards. So the Japanese try and take these hangars out to reduce American Air Force. You also get points for destroying the enemy units. So that's the other way of getting... Ultimately, because this is a tournament game, it's about earning VP to win and get as many points towards the tournament. But if the Japanese can take the HQ, to get a large points bonus. So that's ultimately their aim. As this is asynchronous, both these matches are played at once. So one match I'm playing the Japanese, and the other match I'm playing the Americans. Because generally the Japanese have more opportunity to get points, but it's a mirrored game, so it all balances out. So if we get started. The Japanese will go first, and they'll deploy their troops into the beaches. This replay we're viewing the Americans, but new thing coming is the ability to turn off the fog of war. So if I can turn off the fog of war, I'll be able to watch the entire map coming. So the Japanese have air resupply opportunities in the north, east, west, and in the southwest. But their troops get deployed off the coast, about 3 or 4 hectares off the coast. So I start in. Generally, you'll see my preferred tactic here is full Marines. So you'll see lots of Marines being deployed. And I deploy the first set in there with a supply ship to support them. Second flank is up here, where I'm going for this northerly point, where I can try and inch my way onto the ashore here. I'm a long way away from the HQ, but my hope is that I can make some incremental gains and at least make the opponent pay attention to me. So some Marines there. Then I deploy in some planes. The Japanese, the first 2 planes they get start at level 3. So I got level 3-0, level 3 bomber, another bomber. My general thinking is that these guys are going to come in and attack the hangars, and he's going to try and take on the Wildcats. It doesn't necessarily go as the plan as I wanted it to, but we'll see how that plays out in a bit. I also deploy another set of Marines up here with the objective to come and try and cut off this island. The Americans can deploy pretty much anywhere along this road, so I don't know where they're going to be at the start of the game. My hope here is to try and, if there's any up here, I'm going to try and cut them off at this bridge and fight back that way, and maybe support these guys who are landing here if I can. We'll see how it plays out. But that's all I get. My first wave is just those 12 CP worth of land units. So, the Americans, they start off by deploying some infantry to cover the points here. They put their medical jeep down, AA gun, more infantry. And AA gun down here. They've also deployed some engineers and infantry up here in the north. So they've got a bit of coverage. There's no coverage here down this main flank. It's quite hard to invade there, so it's not a problem. And they've got a good chunk of people defending their main HQ. They've also put some artillery down as well. So, my first move is to fly my zero in here, basically have a scout around to use there, get a pot shot away at this hangar. What I didn't anticipate necessarily is that there's an AA gun covering that immediately, which doesn't do really any damage, but puts the wind up me a bit, so it I don't really do any damage to his hangar either. I make the choices. Remember, as a Japanese, I can't really see much other than what I've just overflown, so I make the choice to go and try and take out his AA gun aggressively, in the hope that will buy me some time in the next turns to basically keep air superiority and keep the pressure on. My other choice would have been to go and bomb this hangar out, but I would have got shot up a bit. So I've been a bit aggressive. It didn't necessarily work. So first units move in. They head straight for the beach over there. They head straight over here. Remember, at this point, I just about see them now as I start approaching. My plane didn't see these guys yet. And these guys come into attack on plan for the north, with a destroyer doing some support fire. So, the Americans. First job of the Americans, get your coastal guns firing. So the Americans have several coastal guns. They have one here, which these guys have 8 range, so that guy covers most of this top northerly area. They have a guy here who can just about hit the beach here, and also cover this side and also the interior of the lagoon if the Japanese go there. And they have a guy down here in the extreme southeast who can just about cover this beach, but they don't have any coastal bombardment capability to this section here, which is a weakness that can be exploited. The next move, they bring their second AA gun. This is what I didn't see in my first turn. I didn't realise they'd gone double AA, which poses a significant issue for my aerial attackers. So they come in, and my experienced fighter bomber gets shot up quite badly in that first section, and he uses that to heal up his second AA, meaning he's got nearly full AA umbrella again, which is significantly hampers my aerial attack ability. His other infantry, he can see my guys now. He can't see this guy. These guys only have two range, so he can't see here. So he'll be able to see possibly a blob of radar from his planes, but he can't actually see the units there. He'll be able to see these guys coming full range. So if I turn Fog of War back on again, you can sort of see these are the kind of units you can see. He can't actually see here at all. You can only see up there. And back off. He brings his artillery forward. It's got a 5 hex range, I think. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he can cover the beach and the approach. And he uses his infantry to move down here and basically deny me landing zones down the south. And these guys come over here to respond to this attack, which is overall good. So that's how his first turn plans out. I start mine by getting these guys ashore. I'm reasonably safe here, there's no one actually aboard. There may be someone up here, but I don't know at this point. And move the supply ship in to support them. Make sure they've got some supplies. Then this area down here, it's not a good landing zone here. I'm well outnumbered. I can see all 4 of these units from my planes, and this guy literally cannot land. So I decided to make a bit of a manoeuvre to try and instead attack the gold beach directly. Planes. Here is not a good place to be. There's lots of AA guns, so I made the call to go as far away from them as possible. The disadvantage is these kind of represent the runways that were on Wake Island, but they're fast paved roads, so these guys can shift over here to cover pretty quickly. But I think at this point there's a lot of AA umbrellas. I need to take out at least one of these wildcats on the ground, otherwise I'm going to really suffer for air cover later on. So these guys go over there, get involved, and at least get rid of one of those wildcats on the floor. So by the end of this, I'll be able to field 4 aerial units, which means he can only ever field 3, and he can't replace them because they're not core units, like I can replace mine. So eventually, I'll be able to adrit him down and get area superiority by the end of it. If you don't take any of these out, it ends up with 4v4 and can be quite hard for the Japanese to maintain aerial superiority, because the Americans can have land aerial attack. So my Zero, rather than engaging this guy over the middle of all his AA umbrella, basically goes on a scouting mission. He can't. I don't think he sees anything because he has so much visibility range. But basically, he went to look and see if anyone's defending this point. Those guys land. My destroyer comes around to support them. The destroyers can provide enough supply for one infantry unit. And he starts whistling down that gun to protect himself, while the infantry starts trying to take down this bunker. You'll note that I mostly use Marines because they get that free supply cache, which means that I get a turn at some point where they can be cut off and they won't suffer, which gets used later on, but I find very useful when I'm doing an invasion operation like this. And this is also the point in turn 2 where the Japanese get their first set of reinforcements. So you basically get your first unit wave, a little bit of engagement, feel the enemy out. You can't really do much, you can just get ashore. But then once you've had that feel out, the Japanese get to deploy their second reinforcements, who will be ashore in a couple more turns. So, I've engaged up here, I've engaged down here. I can see there's a lot of units down here they have to engage. So my general plan is I'm going to come and try and strike and cut off this bit here, and hopefully pull some of these guys away from this major landing area down here. Similarly, I'm going to try and hit heel points here. Again, try and pull these guys who I can see back this way, so I can push through, so I can drag them out of shape. Indeed, I go full second wave attack at heel point here, because that is a lot of units down covering the south, and the Americans can only redeploy so quickly. And then to help over here, put this guy into a bit of support, and the new Zero gets deployed from the fleet up here to try and take on these Wildcats. This guy I deploy unsupported because I've got the supply ship here. You should be able to cover them both. So, Americans, as it generally is standard in this playthrough, they start up with their units in the north here. Some shots in the bunker to put me down a bit. The coastal gun tries to take down the destroyer a bit. Destroyers are quite resilient to this sort of thing. The coastal guns will do a lot of damage to landing craft and supply ships, but they'll struggle with the deployer destroyers. And see, at this point, this is what the Americans can see. Notice they can't see anything over here at all. They can't see where I've deployed in the slightest. They really have to have units on the beaches or on the beaches here to see this. And it's hard, you haven't got enough units as the Americans to cover all these approaches. So he deploys over here, deploys his AA over there. It's a very nice hot shot. That Wildcat launched this turn from that hangar that I didn't take out the first turn. And uses that to significantly cripple the offensive capabilities of my bombers. And this one comes back to protect the airport and the last grounded Wildcat. They start moving over because I'm doing manoeuvring, so he's just responding to my manoeuvres. And the important bit here is if you look at the fog of war off, he can't see this. So he won't get an automatic camera movement towards just a bit of territory changing hands. So if he hasn't actually spotted that territory's changed colour, he doesn't know I'm there at all. Which he knows he doesn't because these troops stay on the beach. If he knew I was there, I'd expect one of these guys to be coming over and trying to assault me from this jungle hex. So, my turn. Bring in these guys to support this, and these guys are going to fall back to try and join in. And they're going to try and take this point and secure it, so I've at least cut off this flank. Down the south, I'm massively outnumbered here. I'm not going to be able to do much, but I can at least engage over here. Essentially, what's changed between now and the start of the mission is that at the start this is where my main thrust was, but I've seen that there is a lot of guys down here covering this. So these guys are going to stay down here, they're going to keep these guys busy, whereas I've moved my main thrust really up here. A few pot shots off to do nothing much. And importantly, I'm staying away from this line here, because that's where the line of this coastal battery is. So I'm staying west of this line. These guys got to come in. He'll see these guys on radar because he's got his plane here, so he can see these guys coming in. And he definitely sees me when I start doing that. My bombers are really well out of action. They can't do anything meaningful here, especially not with these AA umbrella. So my choice is basically go and be a pest with them, really. I'm just going to go and take on his coastal battery. Try and just chip down a little bit. And I move my zero in to give them both some coverage, basically just to try and engage. Don't give these guys a free shot, at least make them engage either engage the zero directly, which will make it hard for them because the zero is a better plane than the Wildcat, or at least give them some coverage in return fire if they go for my bombers. And then we bring in my other zero in, and again you can't see this guy yet. He's going to come in and engage later on. And this is the main new attack force. He can't see that. He hasn't even got radar there because he's got no planes up there. And this guy can't see past the beaches because of where he is. So he literally can't see these guys at all in his turn. Which if I was playing, I'd be very paranoid that I couldn't see where my units were, and I'd be trying to scout all the bits I couldn't see. But my opponent here is too busy fighting me to actually go and look. So I keep saving my destroyer around the points because it's good to keep ships moving because it makes them a harder target for to be hit. And I'm going to keep chipping away at this, and I'll get that next turn and get my point. Where's my opponent? As he sees this, he knows that's going to happen, but he uses his infantry to come over here and cover it. So when I take this point, he'll counterattack me the turn after. He's obviously got superior 10 versus 6, but I've got destroyer, and these guys can be supplied. So I'm reasonably happy that I'll hold that point. I won't be able to do much else, but I'll hold it because he can't get 2 units, a 2-to-1 because of his coastal battery taking that hex. If fight comes to engage, at this point he'll spot these guys. I've got a landing craft there as well, but I don't think he still can't see anything up here. I can see my zero providing support fire to at least hurt them a little bit. And he managed to knock down both of them, which is nice. Like I said, these coastal guns can do some damage to landing units, but not necessarily to destroyers themselves. So he can now see I've got someone coming here, so he's got to respond. So he starts pulling infantry over here to try and engage me, and he moves a pile of batteries down here to cover this central area. What's notable here is this artillery piece has not done anything at all yet, because I've been engaging on the periphery and not towards the actual HQ. That's a lot of CP tied up for something that's not doing anything. Similar to the medical jeep. You get it for free, but it still takes a CP to deploy it. So if he hadn't deployed these two, that's another infantry unit he could have somewhere, knocking about, plugging a hole. So he moves these guys down here just to stop me deploying these guys again. Basically, it's a good move. It means that I've got a unit I can't do anything with because I can't deploy him. Best I can do is chip away, which again reduces the utility of my invested RP and CP. And he pulls these guys around because obviously he thinks he can take me on. So, my turn. I'm going to run over here. I'm going to try and take this thing out as quickly as possible so I can come back and support. At this point, now he notices me. I still don't think he noticed this until this point. But obviously he's noticed it now. As I nearly take out his crew one shot, but not quite. So I'll take that on next turn and then start flowing back to here to try and pressure this point. There's probably not enough here for him to come and attack me really. I've got enough advantage of 4 units versus 3 units, but it'll be hard for me to get them all in a good place to attack him. So they come backwards. So I start my invasion up here. get my 3 units aboard and get my support ship in position to help. There's more than enough supply there for there. They only need 9, there's 20 coming aboard. At this point, I'm now in range of this gun, but see whether he wants to shoot me or not. So, bring the 0, then shoot him. As I said, if these guys go down, I can replace them from my command point bank. Because there's a core, if they go down, they're done. So I'm very much looking to eliminate them as best as I can. So, start to invade over here. Chip away that thing. And then we take this point. And that's our first seized point. So that's 1 in my direction now. So that's good. So he's destroyed, just to try and weaken this guy a bit. My opponent kind of has a hard choice here. Does he keep chipping away this guy? He'll stay on top, but even if he pushes me back, I can still, because I've got supply, I can keep reinforcing and pushing back. Or does he fall back? If I was him, I might have actually been tempted to sacrifice this, fold this guy back here, and try to get 2-on-1. Because at the moment I've just got nothing much, and these guys are coming in hard. So by having an open flank here, you can't really respond with the full force to this flank here. So, down this bit, obviously been blocked off there, so he sails that way a bit. This guy I actually put ashore. He's massively outnumbered and it's a bit of a sacrificial move really, but I force him to engage. This is a narrow point, so there's only a 2 hex gap here. If I can cut it here, then he's not really got enough supply. He has just about enough supply, but it'll make it harder for him to support. So I decided to actually commit and engage. And I take on the bunker rather than his units. Again, you can't reinforce that. So I'm thinking if it's a sacrificial unit, I may as well do the chip damage I can whilst I can. Just going to go back to tidying up my planes. These guys, because they're land planes, they can't land on my carriers, so I'm essentially trying to get them down to the Marshall Islands down here to resupply. And they're also scouting at the same time, which is useful. So it helps me see whether he's got any units tucked away back here to ambush these guys when they deploy. And those guys do the same, nearly take the bunker, but not quite. That'll go next turn. But I can't see at this point whether he has any units inside heal point. So I'm a bit paranoid about he's got a unit here waiting for me. So, I'll do one more American turn and then I'll put a pause on this. But he has a little chipping like that. As I said here, engages. I think he'll have been hoping for a pushback there, but these are Marines, this is infantry, so it's a reasonable, fair fight. He's on top, but not massively on top. I think at this point he's realised he needs to do something with these engineers, because they've just been sat around doing nothing, and you can't really have units sat around doing nothing on these kind of multiplayer maps. You've got to be utilising your assets as best as possible. And down this bit, the guy that I put aboard, as I said, he's going to get shot up. He shoots him up. But, as I said, what he has done is he left a gap there. I could, if I want to, cut his supply. It's not going to make a difference because he's got more than enough supply over there. But if he'd left too many units there, that's actually quite a narrow join. He's quite exposed to being cut by a unit, especially a sacrificial one here where I know he's not going to survive. And he's obviously coming back now that he realised I'm up here to try and respond to this threat from the far west. This wildcat was launched, that's the last wildcat in the air, so he's got all 3 of them up that he had. I destroyed 1. So that's a decent return for an American player to get. If you can get 3 wildcats up, you're doing alright. And that's 1 point down. And then, just for good measure, that's the other point down. So, they weren't doing much. I've not lost too much. I've mostly lost victory points to him because he gets them for killing my units, and also that 3-star one would have been nice to be able to resupply, but they were pretty rubbished anyway. They were well beaten up, so let it go. And again, this is kind of where he's really ultimately might suffer for this because he's got 2 CP, 2 CP, 2 CP, 1 CP. So say we've got 7 CP here, and he only gets about 30, and they're not doing anything. They're just sat there. They're protecting, yes, but they're not actively engaging with me. So whilst he's covering against eventualities, at the moment those eventualities aren't huge. The one thing he's got to do is protect this guy if he lands him, but this artillery is doing nothing. And it's currently a massive waste. So there's 3 shots. Just a little chip. And she's now trying to flood his units back up. But again, because it's difficult terrain, he can't really get to me in time. So I'm going to get across and hurt him, but he's also got local superiority here, but I think I'll be fine because I've got so much local superiority here. So he's trying now to engage this artillery, and it's going to take a long time for it to do anything useful. Here's a chip away. So, I'm going to pause there at the end of this first section. Tactically, I'm in a reasonably good place. I've secured this section, this is mine, which will get me some points for this. This one up north here, it's 1v1, this is a reasonable trade for me because I know I've got more units in total, and I'm protecting some victory point generating hex, and I'm also exposing a flank, which helps. It's going to take a while for this to play through. These units go to trit against each other for a while, I think, but it's going all right. This bit over here is my big win. I've got 3 versus nothing essentially, and I'm having to really pull his units from a long way away to come and protect this point. This bit here, this is good because he's going to slow these guys getting up here and engaging with that. And then this last bit down here, I'm losing this, but I don't really mind because I'm forcing his units to engage me, and they can't come elsewhere. So I'll pick this up later. See you in a bit.